there's a lot of hard things going on. I do think art can do a lot of things for people. It can bring people together, it can start conversations, it can express to other people what's important to you. I think it's just a really good way to get people talking about things and experiencing things that they don't normally experience in their own life. And it's good to bring people together in a way that you're not always focusing on your differences and you can actually see what you have in common. You know, somebody that has a completely different political standpoint from you can also love their dog. And little small things like that I think can help. So I think our work can do that for people. Usually when I start doing a print, I have some idea in mind based on an animal I know or a friend of mine with an animal. So this particular print started from a friend of mine's little 4-year-old daughter named Jess and her miniature donkey named Lily. And I start drawing just these really, really messy ideas in my head just to try to figure out how I want to lay this out. I've always loved to draw and sketch. And when I was a kid, I just filled up sketchbook after sketchbook. I sat around in my treehouse and drew all the time. I started with Lily the donkey just in the middle of this thing and trying to get the trees and the birds and stuff that are around her all the time. And that's not really working for me. I wanted the donkey to be bigger, so I added a little hill and stuck her on the hill. Essentially, I go through this little series of, you know, that's not working, this is way too big for the donkey. And I just keep moving through ideas until I settle on something that I like and I can start to play with more in my iPad. I think in the whole process of printmaking for me, the design and just the drawing and figuring out how it's going to end up is what takes me the most time. I just start then drawing in my iPad, and I will often start drawing on a black background and draw white because that's how I carve. Everything that's left over is black and prints with the ink, and the white is what you carve out, so it actually helps me think through my carving. Things are really complicated a lot of times, and there's so much input and so much, you know, social media and news and everything going on, everything coming in at you all the time. And I think that's not always the best thing for people. I think it can be really detrimental. And so I want people to sit back and be able to take a look at something more simple in their life, as the simple as the relationship with your pet, which definitely seems like this very simplistic little thing, but it's a very important thing in a lot of people's lives. This is what this drawing ended up looking like, and I messed around with it for a long time. All my sketches had the ground way on the bottom, and I ended up with this sort of little islandy thing, which I felt really worked in the end. This one print actually ended up becoming a series of prints, and then I just played around with it some more, added another donkey, and then just continuing to play with it, it became another print, and this was just a nighttime version, and I wanted them more to feel like really ensconced in there at night and sleeping and stuff. So that's just my thought process going through some things, and it's really just playing around with it at that point and coming up with something that seems to work. I think my biggest weakness is definitely getting too sucked into the business side. I don't often let myself go down a creative road that I want to because I know I have to get something done or make something else happen. But I definitely need to explore that aspect of things more and let myself do that and have time to do that. I've also then started playing around with those same donkeys, but in a colored print that just has totally different feel to it. And I messed around with that with some different kind of donkeys and a horse jumping around. So I just start messing with things on the iPad once I get some general concept in there. Once it's in the iPad and I have the thing, then I just print it out and then you transfer it on the paper. So to finish with this one, this is what it ends up looking like when it's actually carved. I need to feel like I can understand the animal itself and understand its personality somewhat before I can really do a good version of it. So once I have a drawing in the iPad, this is another friend of mine's dog, and his name is Benny. And Benny is this crazy little mutt of a dog, and he's got all this energy, and he's always rolling around. So I wanted his print to feel like it had some action in it. I had to have some motion because he's always in motion. When I first started my business, I definitely started really small. I sell almost all of my artwork online, And I started off by doing a lot of commissions, and that really just gets people talking about stuff, and you get a lot more commissions. The first couple years, I didn't necessarily make a lot of money, but I could see where it was going. It was really just me getting after it and making contacts with people. Over the next few years, it definitely grew, and now this last 2 years since the pandemic, it has grown significantly. So I just printed this out from my drawing on the iPad, and then this is just carbon paper. It's actually sort of a waxy-based paper, and all you do then is trace over your lines and transfer it onto the lino. So I'm trying to do a really good job of keeping this feeling like it's flowing and movement in there as I do it. Once you actually have it transferred to the lino, this is what it ends up looking like. So advice for people that want to be creative in their life. You can be really creative in just your day-to-day stuff. Before I started selling stuff, I made people cards all the time. I would make little, do a drawing of somebody's animal for them and just frame it for their birthday or whatever it is. And you can do all kinds of little creative things in a lot of little ways that make sense. I also think if you want to start a business, there are so many ways that are easy to do that today that are supportive, like a platform like Etsy. You can just put a few things out there and see where it goes and get started with it, and it can grow. So when I carve, I always start with the eyes, because if you mess up the eyes, you really have to start the whole thing all over. You just can't fix it once it's messed up. So I already carved out the little places here, and this is not super detailed in the eye area. Her face is going to be in shadow, but the eyes are carved out first because I don't like to have to redo the whole thing later. And then really it's just a matter of taking your time and following the lines. When there's really detailed things, it's slow, and when you want really thin lines, for me, it's just this very slow, methodical process. This size of print will probably generally take me 3 or 4 days to carve, but I don't just sit down and carve like all day long. My hand would fall off. So I usually carve like 3 or 4 hours a day if I'm actively trying to get something done. The inking is all about getting the ink in the exact right consistency. It gets dry really quickly, and it gets too tacky really quickly, and you spend a lot of time doing this instead of actually putting it on the actual block. So there's a lot of back and forth rolling going on here. I usually do editions of about around 30 to 40 prints, and so I can keep them in a range that is reasonably affordable. So this particular donkey's name is Maya, and she is another friend of mine's miniature donkey, and Maya is one of those donkeys that you cannot get more than a foot away from no matter what. You go into her pen and she is all about being close to you and getting hugs and snuggles. I worked in Wyoming for about 25 years, and I worked for an outfitter, and it was just pretty standard packing in and out of the mountains, and it was a great job for me. Like, I loved it. I could just be out there with the animals, and that was that. So the reason her print is how it is because she's all up in your face and she's really close, and so her print is this donkey that is all up in your face and really close and goofy, making goofy, funny lips and smiling at you. My life is my inspiration. The way I interact and live with my animals, they're directly involved with my business. I use them for horse logging, and so a lot of the wood that I will mill down, and I use it to make picture frames for my artwork. And they're not just the inspiration and the models, but they actually directly, work within the business. I think that kind of interconnectedness with my life is important to me, and just how I live, how I work with the animals, this all comes full circle for me. It's about making a little glimpse in time of an animal that somebody has a connection with, and about that person being able to remember that moment in time, that animal. And I want people to wake up in the morning and look at the wall and see the print of their animal and just smile and be happy. So I just tape out on the thing where I need the block to lay down, line everything up with the paper place and get it stuck on there, and that is what I do. I do everything by hand, and so you really just have to sit here and put a lot of pressure on it and get every little part of the print pressed down. Okay. That's what it looks like. And then you just hang it up to dry, and that's it.